Hi, I'm Rena Cranford. I was here a few weeks ago, a month or so ago, and Executive Director of the Utilities Authority, Dan Sullivan, was here. He attended this meeting. He stood at this podium during a public meeting, and he referred to myself and other citizens that regularly attend meetings and question your spending. His exact words were, "Don't listen to these idiots and whiners." Now, as a executive director of the public body, I thought that was outrageous on its own. But what I didn't realize that night was that he was saying that in front of you, Freeholder Hudak, who was overseeing the meeting, if I recall correctly, and you are the freeholder liaison to the Union County Utilities Authority. And I'm asking you tonight to explain to the public, you had a disclaimer at the beginning of the meeting that people were going to come here and talk about the Utilities Authority. But I'd like you to explain, if you don't mind, if it's not much trouble, exactly what being a liaison to an authority requires you to do. I attended the February 13th meeting where I questioned the stipends being given to Sullivan and all the Utilities Authority employees. You were present. I didn't get an answer. And now I'm reading a resolution that they passed last night that said their board had no idea this was going on. Yet, every meeting they have to approve the bills list, and on the bills list is how I found out about it. I simply read the bills list, and it's not thousands of vouchers that they write like the county does. It's just a few dozen. So it's pretty clear that these employees, Sullivan was getting an extra $2,500, his deputy was getting $1,000 a month, and every employee was getting $500 a month. And to add insult to injury, I took time to go to a meeting and politely ask what this is about. I got no answer. And now this resolution claims that the board had no idea that this was going on. My other question to you is, you are the liaison to Utilities Authority. What is your responsibility for this? And the freeholders appoint the board. So every single one of those board members that weren't really paying attention to how the money was being spent, and correct me if I'm wrong, I would imagine that that would be a main function. If you're going to appoint someone to a board, you're asking them to pay attention to what's going on, to run it. So if not one of those board members were paying attention to these stipends being given to employees, I mean, it's just very clear. Freeholders, Daniel Sullivan, $2,500. Brennan, $1,000. Their name and the amount, the check that they were given, was written in the check registry. And again, it's not a lot of documentation. Not that that would matter, because I assume that would be their responsibility to be paying attention to it, especially if they're voting on it. I would imagine that legally obligates them to know what they're voting on, if not morally. I mean, they had a responsibility to know what that was. So if you appointed these board members, and these board members aren't paying attention to how these dollars are being spent, why aren't you replacing them tonight? Why aren't you outraged? Where's your outrage? This is like, it's beyond dysfunctional. It's silly. Children could do this better. I uncovered it because I take the time to look at these authorities and look at their check registries. Once in a while, I have to get up on it, I guess do it monthly. But no one on that board was watching what they were voting for. What else is going on there? Sullivan should be fired. Every board member should be replaced. And you, at the very least, tonight, Freeholder Hudak, owe the public an explanation as to what your involvement is, what your responsibility is there. You're the liaison to that authority. You attended that meeting I was at, and you had no answers. What are you liaison? You're not looking at the bills list? You didn't know this was going on? Hard to believe. Hard to believe. You are responsible.
Any other members of the public wishing to comment on any matter?
Yeah, the UCUA. I wasn't going to pile on, but yeah, UCUA has definitely problems. And I came before the freeholders, you weren't here, Chairman, but about 4 years ago, and I looked at the UCUA refinancing plan that they presented to the public and to the freeholders, and I found in their refinancing of 3 bonds that there was approximately $3 or $4 million that disappeared, that wasn't accountable. I put together numbers, and I sent it as an Excel spreadsheet to the freeholders, and I pointed it out. Jonathan Williams of Dakota Fitzpatrick, who represents as a legal counsel the UCUA, said the numbers were not true, but normally numbers don't lie. I mean, it was straight out. You had to juggle all three bonds and put them together, but there was $3 million was like unaccounted for. Well, now we're seeing this money being passed around behind closed doors, almost like it's a criminal action, which it probably is, but at this point I'm not going to say. But possibly, this $3 million is starting to show up in certain people's pockets. Tina Renna of the Union County Watchdogs pointed out. Freeholder Sullivan, ex-Freeholder Sullivan, for some reason, no experience whatsoever, but he's promoted to the head of the UCIA and the UCUA, getting thousands and thousands of dollars in some suspicious stipend. Something really needs to be investigated. This is bad news. But I'm not here really to talk about the UCUA, but I had to mention that because a couple of years ago I pointed out there was disappearing money, and now it's reappearing.